Hello everyone, welcome back to the Techpoint Africa Podcast. I'm Oluwanifemi, and with me in the studio today is Bolu, and we have a very special guest with us today. Not a first, but here. We're always glad to have her with us in the studio. Her name is Rosemond Phil-Othihiwa. Did I get that?
Yes, you did. Awesome. I love it.
Thanks for joining us
Thank
today,
you.
Rosemond. Rosemond is a tech lawyer, right? And I don't know whether she's into litigation or corporate.
Yeah, I am, but I rather run away. I like the
there's more
transactions
money in
better.
corporate than the litigation. But yeah, she's a tech lawyer and she'll be providing insight into the stories that we're going to discuss today. We have very interesting stories to talk about today, though few, but I'm sure you're going to love the conversation because the online has been buzzing this week. It seems a lot is happening, and not just in the startup world, but also in the telecommunication or internet world, or social media world, as it were. So we're going to start with one story that is close to home, Nigeria, and that is the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission, FCCPC, has won a suit that is expecting Meta, the parent company of Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp, to pay a whopping sum of $200 million. $220 million for you can bet, like, not using Nigerians' data well, and this case has been in the court for a few years, since 2021, and now there is a judgment, and that the tech company is expected to pay that amount to the commission. There are a lot of things to unwrap in that story because I'm wondering why the focus is on Meta to start with, because what Meta is being accused, is this still an accusation? No, is this still an accusation? Well, what Meta is being accused for is what every big tech is involved in, and that is the way they use users' data. But sorry, the questions we'll be talking about is why Facebook, why Meta, why Meta, to start with. Why the target? It seems Meta is the target for many of these lawsuits in different countries, not just even in Africa. So let's start with that. Why Meta?
All right. So maybe I you know me, when I start these things, I always like to come with a little bit of context.
Okay.
So first of all, the FCCPC is one of the regulators that are appointed by the federal government to ensure that, so like federal customer consumption and all that. So one of the things that we need to realize is that this was not just a judgment that just came out of the blue. Okay. Right. And it was not as if it was the Supreme Court that gave. No, they are regulators. And what they did was, over the period of 38 months, they conducted an investigation.
Okay.
Right. And the essence or the claim of this investigation were bordered on three things. Because the question is, why Meta? Now, first of all, the specific channels that were being investigated was WhatsApp and Facebook.
Okay.
But obviously, when Facebook changed to Meta and became the holding company, then they became the ones that took the parental responsibility for all its all its subject and of course its subsidiaries. So this investigation happened simply because there were allegations as regards the inappropriate use, transfer, dealing with, and of course interference with the data of Nigerians. Now, as we all know, beyond FCCPC, we also have the Nigerian Data Protection Commission now. As at the time when the investigation was being conducted, what we had was a regulator. They were just regulators. They had not yet become a commission. So it was the NDPR, that's the Nigerian Data Protection Regulations, that were enforced 2019. Now, based on the investigation, based on the allegations, right, I'd mentioned three things. Number one, there were, allegations as regards the fact that unnecessary data that was not needed for the core functionalities of those apps were being collected from the citizens of Nigeria. If you look at the FCCPC Act, particularly if running down from, I think, Section 7 downwards. And then, of course, the Nigerian Data Protection Regulation, which you have some very specific sections also that talks about how data of Nigerian citizens are meant to be used, whether they live in Nigeria or they are out of the country, and even the foreign transfer of data. You realize that even the European laws and our laws were very similar. So the first problem was that our data was not being used properly. Number two, the privacy policies and terms and conditions of use of those products were being foisted because we did not have an opportunity to say no.
Yes.
Right? And that in law is called self-determination. You have a choice to say, I'm not comfortable with these changes. I choose to. And the problem, based on the investigative report, right, it was a very huge report. Based on that report, it was that, if you say no, then you're not going to be able to use the service.
WhatsApp. Yes,
right?
I remember that year when everyone was told to upgrade.
Yes.
And we accept this.
I mean, and it's very funny because and like you said, why Meta? So that I'm not just talking to I need to give context because it's very important, because one of the things that actually means is that it is either our way or the highway. Now, if you look at, and that's the problem, especially in a country like Nigeria, where we have a lot of services that are tailored towards us. I was reading the investigative report, and what they particularly said when they asked the representatives of Meta that why was that happening, they couldn't really give a very formal response, because what we noticed is that our European counterparts have a right to choose to accept or not choose to accept the use of the data. It's called the right to self-determination. You can say, okay, as a citizen, this is how I want my data to be used. But what happened is that if you say no, then your services are downgraded, right? And it was a problem. So at the end of the day, the parent company had to take the fall for it. And I can tell you that there were interviews. In fact, there was an order to show cause. It's called an OSC. I think they were even represented by Nigerian Council, right? There was, I think that if you check the investigative report, you will see a link to a live investigative video that basically explains. And there was a huge process. So it was not as if the Nigerian government just woke up one morning and decided to give a fine.
Okay.
So this happened from 2021 even till now. Right, and that's the entirety of those investigations led to the fact that you guys were in breach. Right, first of all, you are foisting privacy policies on us. That The second is that we don't have the right to self-determine, and then the way you are dealing with us are not the same thing. You are supposed to be a global company, and then your policies are. Well, it is what it is, and of course they were giving that fine, and then they will say the rest is history, right? So we are waiting to see the outcome. Although there are rumors or speculations that they are going to appeal, who knows?
Yeah,
but then,
I mean, they always do.
They always appeal.
Yeah.
Of course.
But again, another answer to the question of why Meta again is, like she said, they were requesting more than what they needed. And then when they asked them, what are you collecting exactly? And they could not say precisely, this is what we collect, this is what we collect.
Okay, so that it doesn't count against
them.
them.
So one of the things that they collect that was that was alarming to me, right, was right here. I can read it. They said such data, including device fingerprinting. So, and they said that's device fingerprinting may be shared with third parties and commercialized.
Oh goodness.
You get. So
that's my protection. That's my
privacy.
You think that's the ultimate privacy, because that's what I used.
They forced you to click it, so everybody clicked it.
And then it's very when you brought up the European Union thing, right? It was discriminatory because you did not force people from other countries
to do that
to accept these things, but you force people in Nigeria. And the reason why they were able to do that, for me, I think the reason why they were able to do that was because
monopoly.
Number one, yes, they already had a monopoly when it comes to messaging, right, in Africa, even in most, I think in a lot of countries,
markets,
right. So if I don't have WhatsApp today,
I'm not
there are a lot of people I won't be able to talk to easily. Right?
There was a whole conversation around it.
They knew. So
in 2021, and I remember writing an article and trying to say, is it worth it? Like the dependency of Nigerians on this particular app, on this particular product, would make them to not look at their privacy and just go with it. Because when you look at the the alternatives, you're going to be disconnected from the world. Yes, Telegram is looks like a formidable competition, but like people still want to use WhatsApp as the boomers call it. It is, and I think FCPC, this move by FCCPC is going to, I think it's going to like not just end in Nigeria, maybe it will spur other African countries
and
I don't think want to look into it.
It might not be FCCPC alone, because I think what FCCPC is really looking at is the collection of this data is making them stronger, making them making them anti-competitive, because they have something to hold you down with.
Yes.
So it is possible that we might see other commissions actually suing Meta. Is that something?
Honestly, right? Like I say, it's only to be expected, right? And I mentioned this because even in Europe, like they give fines like no man's business. They are always before panels answering questions, right? So I think it's one of the things that we have to realize, that in the age where we are, data is fuel and data is oil.
Yes.
And that is why one of the things that were even mentioned in the report is that all of a sudden, based on the fact that they are collecting more information that is necessary, users are being exposed to all sorts of information that they would usually not even want to see. It's not today. Let's not deceive ourselves that we are literally like, how will I put it, statistics when it comes to being able to proliferate advertisements and content our way.
And they keep saying the African market is not huge. It's just 0.70% of their market. But the kind of data they harvest from this side and using those things to target ads as us, I think it's worth looking into. But where do we go from here?
So exactly, I think that's the next thing I wanted to say. I would say that what happens after this investigative report is the most important thing. Everybody's screaming $220 million fine, but the main crux of the matter is that they have to go back, because one of the recommendations, or one of the things that were also stated in the administrative procedure, was that the parties have to revert back to the privacy policy of 2016, which seemed to be fair and even more in compliance with the NDPR at the time, right? Because the one for 2021 definitely goes against almost everything that the NDPR, and you put in greater extension, the GDPR stands for, especially when it comes to the data processing of Nigerian citizens, right? So that was when the fine was there, the mandate for them to revert back to the old terms of policy, right? And then to take proactive steps to ensure that data that was not necessary be completely extrapolated from their system. So I think that these are some of the things that we should monitor and follow beyond just the fine, right? Because at the end of the day, somebody has to take responsibility for what they do. Like you don't just say, because you say you click the terms of conditions. And of course, they even talked about how you had to even click. You couldn't even click it.
Yes.
Not.
I mean, you just have to update. You just have to update, and everything.
You accept or you don't use it.
I don't know how many of you were as surprised as I was. I was busy on my WhatsApp before, I've seen one very strange color on my screen. I'm like, what? Why is somebody?
I should not lie. When I saw that, I didn't think anything of it. Privacy was okay.
I mean, like,
I remember seeing this. I'm like,
I remember then that I have a friend that refused to upgrade. He said, if you people should log me out of WhatsApp. Like, it went on and on for months. I think until the end, when they said, okay, if you have not upgraded, you will not be allowed to use WhatsApp. That was when he now agreed to update. But I knew then that they knew that we didn't have a choice, and it is commissions like this that can fight for citizens.
Yes.
And I just want to say something too, because this just occurred to me, is that even in the terms of use and policy, what they specifically stated was that they had the right to sell our data to third parties with or without our acknowledgement.
Consent.
Right? And let's not deceive ourselves. Big tech, they do this.
Yes.
Literally, right? Let's not even lie. That's what they do. But for it to be so obvious, so out there in the open, and everybody's still like, I don't care. That's why we need organizations like the NDPA, right? And of course, the FCCPC to really, put a hash on this. Let's not go back to the days of Twitter ban. That's a very interesting conversation. But the way forward for me is that let both parties realize that they are both responsible for the actions that they take. Take steps to remedy it. Look at areas where they know very well that they are going against our regulations, because one of the answers to some of the questions that the FCCPC asked them was that why is the law for Nigerians different from those for the Europeans? And they're like, oh, because of the uniqueness of our legal and regulatory system. Which uniqueness? The Nigerian legislation literally almost copies and pastes from European legislation. So what exactly is the uniqueness? Right? So, I mean, like, what is good for the goose is good for the gander. We are not second-class citizens simply because we're in a different continent. So, it is important that the way they treat their European citizens, we should be treated as that. And, of course, it's called the right to self-determine. It's a fundamental right, and it should be obeyed.
Yes.
There's also something we need to point out. Like, when the fine came out, like, people were like, hey, you people want to fine them, collect money. And I think I want to commend the FCCPC right, for publishing something like this, because it made us understand that it was not just the Nigerian government trying to extort people again. It actually made sense. There was an actual reason. So maybe for now, like, we should probably, maybe other agencies, right, that do things like that, they should explain. Let us know, oh, this is why we are doing something like this, and not just that we'll just see fines and things like that. And also for us, right, we should understand that these people don't necessarily have our best interest at heart.
You mean the big tech?
Yes.
Yeah, business.
To be honest,
it's
a
capitalist nation now.
So when we see stories like that, or when we see that government is going after them, I mean, our government is not safe. I understand why we will feel that way when we see those things, but it makes sense that the FCCPC is now letting us understand that.
And another thing I would say, and I'm speaking from a legal perspective, please, founders, businesses, people who use information, please read laws. I know that it's very boring, but please read. Know your rights. Okay. I mean, like, I don't know how we are going to do this thing, right? Maybe someone will come up with interpreting rights in cartoon language or something.
True. I think
because if you don't know, what you don't know will kill you, whether you like it or not.
Terms and conditions, no matter how short it is, we don't even read
the Nigerian government is trying its best to explain this law. So we have the new law now. We have Nigerian Data Protection Act, which I wouldn't say is so new, but there's a guideline now for the implementation, and it's in good English. So it's 20 pages. Just speak it one day and read. I mean, everything is not swiping on social media. Pick it and read. Like, we need to know what's going on so that, we don't wake up one morning and something is sounding strange to us. Very important.
Yes, Rosemond just broke the table right now. And I'm sure everyone is affected. Either you own a business or you're an individual using services, whether it's global or local.
And honestly, organizations that don't have DPOs or do not, and they process data, FCCPC is coming for them. It's a matter of time.
Okay.
Yeah. I was saying that it will not end with Meta.
No.
Because
they are waiting, because literally there was a deadline for processors of major importance to have submitted. That was June 30th. And some people are still, let's do whatever. Anyways, let me just stop here.
Just stop. Please educate. Which companies are affected?
So under the law, right, you have data processors of minor importance and major importance. So if you are dealing with data subject of like 1,000, right, and below, you're possibly minor, but of course above you're major, regardless of the fact. Your number one responsibility is that you should always have a licensed data compliance protection organization that helps you do data audits.
Okay.
Right? They are responsible based on the Nigerian Data Protection Act to scan or audit your organization, just the way you do a financial audit. You do a data audit.
Okay.
And based on that audit, you submit reports to the Nigerian Data Protection Commission. Okay. It is required that it is done at least once a year. Right? And then even within your organization, have a data compliance officer that looks at your day-to-day operations and ensures that you have proper data compliance policies, so that in issues as regards breaches and attacks, there is a clear system that says, if you are having a breach, this is how to escalate it to. You should have all those policies in place. And of course, get legal guidance, because I do a disclaimer now. Whatever I say, but like I said, it's very important. Those are things that business owners, founders, and of course companies should take care of.
So companies should not be found breaking this or in fault of this regulation. Please do what you're supposed to do if you're handling citizens' data, because FCCPC is coming for you. I love that. So we go to the next story, which the Nigerian tech ecosystem has not taken well at all. And in a new development, US-based neobank that houses the accounts of many early-stage startups that are probably incorporated in the US have excluded or have announced that they will be excluding certain startups from certain countries, including a number of African countries, including Nigeria, from their services. So these people have been expected to move out their fund and close their account with Mercury. If we remember, Mercury was like the out for many African startups when SVB had the bank run last year and shut down, right? And now Mercury is saying, we can't house you again. It seems like the risk associated with you is a lot, and it affected countries like Burundi, Cameroon, CAR, Republic of Congo, Liberia, Nigeria, South Sudan, Zimbabwe, and a few others. And it has not been taken well. It has not been taken well because it feels again like another discrimination going on here. And there was also something that I saw that it is not just Nigerian startups that are affected or African startups operating in Africa that are affected. Some startups that are founded by Nigerians or Africans are also affected, even though they are not
necessarily Nigerian
domiciled on the continent. And that sparked up another controversy entirely. Now let's talk about this. Before I go to where I feel that I might be held in the neck, let's just look at the things that are very obvious, and which is why will Mercury do this?
Now, when they say why, so let's backtrack a little bit. This is not the first time they've done it.
Okay.
They did this sometime in 2021 and did this in 2022. According to them, based on facts and some of the reports that have come out based on the announcement, some founders have complained that they didn't get any detailed explanation as to why the accounts were closed. What they just got was a notice in their email based on their internal policies and, of course, requests from third-party service partners. They decided that we're going to do this and all that. But based on a more detailed deep dive, realized that there are some countries that were profiled as high-risk countries. Now, what's the definition of high risk when it comes to the closure of financial activity? You're dealing with issues as regards cyber crime. You're dealing with issues as regards anti-money laundering, money laundering, and of course, terrorism financing. And it is unfortunate that Nigeria, which is in quotes, that giant of Africa, is being compared to countries where there is high volatility of course, terrorist wars. So Afghanistan, Pakistan, a couple of these countries, we are being put in the same net and put into the same boat. Now, based on the fact that Mercury in itself did some sort of internal or compliance audit and had issues as red flags raised, in relation to its business functions, that it had to basically just cut off some certain customers from its pool of service users. Now, the reason why they would say this is a problem is because, well, doing business can be very tricky, right? And it is unfortunate that this is what it is, but I mean, they have a right to say, I don't think there's anything that says you must provide a service, right? Because they basically looked at the environment and said, you know what, we are profiling it. So let me tell you, so paper, Nigeria has been excluded. Yeah. Rice, we've been excluded. A lot of things we have been excluded. It is unfortunate, but it is what it is. Yes. Right? So I think the last thing I want to say is that based, like you rightly said, after the collapse of SPV, right? I think 2020 SVB, that's Silicon Valley Bank. What happened was that Mercury basically was the next option. So a lot of people flooded into Mercury. Now, based on reports, it is deemed that the United Nations recognizes 195 countries. But guess what? The number of countries that are on Mercury's database as regards users is about 200. So that means they had accounts in every country. Plus. Wow. So based on that already, they already have a huge risk profile. So based on that risk profile, I believe strongly that they must have done some audits. Their parties, their shareholders, stakeholders must say, guys, I feel like there's a challenge here. It's part of risk management, really. So it was more or less like an operational thing for them. You know what? Based on the fact that we need to elevate or reduce our risk profile, we're going to cut some countries out. And it's unfortunate. Nigeria, our beloved country, was one of the countries that was taken out. Yeah.
So there's this question we get to ask when things like this happen. Why always us?
Why not? Let me not say why not us. But I mean, like, honestly, okay, let's look at the facts, really.
Okay.
Right? Okay, I'm not trying to say that I feel bad that there's a black cloak that just casted upon us. Doing business is already difficult already.
In the
country.
In the
country. Talk less of doing it outside
the country.
as a lawyer, I sit on a lot of investment panels, and I see that a lot of founders register in Delaware. They register in the US simply because when it comes to foreign direct investment, it is easier to get funding from a foreign investor when you have you are based in a jurisdiction that's outside Africa. Let's tell ourselves the truth.
Yeah.
Because it is very hard to repatriate capital when you put in funds into the African continent.
Yes, even multinationals, that global multinationals, they can tell, the likes of MTN, they can tell what it takes to repatriate funds.
You know, they'll tell you, okay,
airlines too.
NAFTA will tell you, you need to obtain a certificate of capital importation. We know that can take forever if you do not know the right things to do. It is a lot of legal issues that are possibly not understood by a lot of business owners. So based on this, founders have to find a way, and then they collaborate with international organizations and they go and register abroad. But at the end of the day, now that we have been shut down, we have to move to the next best thing.
And that is the most painful part, because we feel we are running away from something. And there's this adage in Yoruba: you say, don't go out. The outside will chase you back in. Literally, that's the literal translation of it. Now you've gone out. Now the outside is not looking good. And this is something else that I've accompanied this conversation that is going on. Is instead of asking why us, why are we not asking what lesson is there to learn from this? So let's talk about that. What lesson is here to learn for African startups or Nigerian startups, as it were?
We need to stop what's the old whitewashing regulatory compliance. That's the very first thing that I need to say that we have to do, as not just a country, but as people who are interested in actually building businesses. There's a reason why we have regulations that have to do with cybercrime, right? Well, I mean, we already have a bad reputation when it comes to issues like this. When it comes to terrorism, right? Sometimes when you watch some very international music, they will not talk about the good things that are happening on the continent. It's the killings that are happening in Borno and the whatever. You can only tell how it's coloring the mindset of people who are trying to do business in the country. And then let's talk about the unnecessary inflation. The last time I was on this set, we know how much fuel was, right? And now,
that's a very good example.
Like,
that's a good example.
Like, we are not making things easier for ourselves. So if we are making life difficult for ourselves, do we expect other people to treat us better? If we are not treating ourselves better, people will not treat us better. So the first responsibility we have is we should stop whitewashing this thing that we call regulatory compliance. If we say that we want to comply with anti-money laundering, let us know that that is what we are doing. The regulators have to explain these things to us. They have to harp down on it. And we also, as business owners, have to ensure that we are also in compliance as well, so that we can know that, okay, if we are even going to contest against being discriminated from any international service, there's evidence to show that we are doing our own part.
So you're totally right, and we there are these issues that we need to look at, but then I want to play devil's advocate, and there are also, I saw tweets about founders who said their residential addresses in the US, company addresses in the US. Basically, everything is US. The only thing about them is
because nationality.
So is it that there could be, on Mercury's side, right? There could be some profiling discrimination.
Not just the
I have no doubt,
business.
possibly,
Because that is something. Because it is easier for it to be explained the way for companies that are serving Nigeria in Nigeria and domicile in Nigeria. But there, what's her name? Alma tweeted and was like, "There's nothing. The only thing connecting me to Nigeria is because of my name. As it were. I don't know if her nationality is still Nigeria. It's because of her name, and her startup was affected." Right, so there's still some explanation that Mercury has to do, or maybe it's just like a general blanket that everybody was packed into, and you're going to be affected.
Maybe they just look at names,
that would be wrong if it was a profiling
Yes.
thing, right? Targeted to the nationalities, then that is a problem, right?
Yes.
And I don't think it's excusable. If you want to do business, you make a business decision. Don't color it with issues as regards that. So I agree with him in that instance.
So there's probably a hint of profiling there, as it were. So now there are, since then, right, we can bet, I'm sure companies that are providing similar services, cross-border services as Mercury, have been in everybody's faces. They are doing ads on different platforms, including Techpoint. You know, you want to say, okay, Mercury has moved. Now this is the next thing to do. So now, why? Let's talk about, first of all, why this startups did not consider Nigerian solution or African local solutions in the first instance, right? And then let's talk about them now coming to use them, right? What are the implications that can happen? Why? What can happen if you're using a local solution, right, to hold your money as it were what you were doing with Mercury or SVB?
Okay, so I think I already a little bit answered that question, because if I get your question, you're saying why don't we have local solutions?
There are actually. Why are they not using the local solutions?
Very, very clear. First of all, founders need funds to run their businesses. Many investors are not going to invest in the Nigerian naira. Possibly, they will tell you, even if they were going to convert, they will convert at the USD rates, right? And many of these founders raise in USD as well. So that simply means that if you are going to be bringing in capital into the country, right? Now, let's just give a typical example. Have you tried to send money, or have you tried to use the banking system to try to collect money? Of course, maybe not in a large figure, but imagine a founder or an investor bringing in, let's just say $500,000 into a Nigerian bank account.
I want it down.
I mean, first of all, let us not talk about the regulatory issues that you are going to even encounter in the first place. Let us even talk about the investors having to collect their money back. We've talked about, I mentioned clearly that we have what is called the National Office for Technology Acquisition and Promotion, right? And one of their responsibilities is to ensure the easy flow of FDI, foreign exchange, from country to country. So usually, before you can even collect your money back, you have to obtain a CCI, which is a certificate of capital importation and all that. It is stressful.
Yes.
The summary of this grammar I'm speaking is that it is stressful to invest USD in Nigeria if you do not have the that's why people go outside and put their monies there, and they only bring in money to the country for operational expenses, pay their employees and all that, but for the main cash they like to keep it outside because of their stability.
So there's now the possibility that these startups would look for another alternative outside.
Yes, definitely.
Oh, interesting. So all
Definitely.
these alternatives,
it is what it is, definitely.
They have to,
because our economy is not helping, right? Look at USD now. USD will soon be 2K.
Hey.
What's going on?
Let it not be too kid.
And then you see founders that are making money in for example, a startup that is based in Nigeria, possibly maybe other countries, hopefully, right? They are earning revenue in naira, but you have to pay your investors in dollars. Does it make logical sense when it comes to how you have to report? So you possibly could be making a profit, but next 2 weeks you have made a loss automatically without doing nothing.
Nothing, just because exchange rates and inflation.
Right?
I think at the end of the day, it's just no matter what solutions are there, it always comes back to the fact that you need to repair stuff here
first.
Like,
I think so.
So it is not a matter
Nobody
of patriotism or something.
Yes, you need to, like, no, I'm saying that if you can
it's
always
not
use
because
Mercury,
of patriotism to come and use an alternative, a local alternative.
Nigeria will always happen. So that is why stuff needs to be fixed here. You can see people that because of their name, they have also chopped stray bullets because. So we just need to fix. We need to fix things here.
So it's a systemic problem that needs to be fixed in Nigeria.
It needs to be fixed.
So if you're listening to us, we decided to focus on Nigerians because we are Nigerians. There are a lot of African countries that are affected. Maybe they should do their podcast. And but yes, this is
I will not.
We are global.
On behalf of
other
African countries.
I'm not saying we will not talk about South Africa. I'm just trying to talk about the emphasis on Nigeria. You get, we are talking about the emphasis in Nigeria because, well, the last funding report revealed that most funding went to Kenya, and Kenya was not on this list. So
a huge sigh.
Yes, so Nigeria is affected. So you understand the pain, and we are hoping that we are able to fix a lot of things that is wrong with our economy, that is affecting things like this, and even the local alternatives are struggling, as it were. Today something is up, the next day it is not up again. No, I can't move my FX. I can't. There are things that keep happening. So we are hoping that this gets fixed, and Mercury, it was a good run
while it lasted. Hopefully they open up their borders as they did before 2022.
Hopefully. All right. Thank you for joining us once again today on the Techpoint Africa Podcast. These two conversations are what are on the mind of people, and we decided that let's just do it on the podcast today. You can find other news, a lot of things is happening in the African tech space, and you can find them on the Techpoint Africa website. Just go to techpoint.africa and you will find those stories there. Don't forget to interact with our stories on our social media platforms, on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and also on LinkedIn. You can also subscribe to our newsletters. We have 4 solid newsletters running in Techpoint currently, and we are not even a newsletter company. Yes, we have the Techpoint Digest. It's a week daily newsletter that talk about happenings of the previous day. It brings you up to speed with that. We also have the Modern Workplace newsletter, where we have conversations about the workplace all over the world, as they relate to Africa and Nigeria, as it were. We also have cool tech. How cool things?
Look at my.
Okay, it's new.
Okay.
It's still in the second episode, so
let me advertise my newsletter by myself.
Okay.
Yeah, it's called the How Cool Tech Works.
How Cool Tech Works.
Nice.
It also has a podcast, so where we just talk about like really interesting technology, and then we'll explain how they work. Very, very interesting stuff.
Yes, we also have Equity Merchant that talk about the startup space and investment world. And yes, don't forget to subscribe to those, and also listen to our podcast. We are podcasters in there, not just Techpoint Africa Podcast. We have other podcasts running. We have the Equity Merchant podcast. We have How Cool Tech Works podcast. We have the Modern Workplace conversations. I'm loving that conversation. If you've not yet subscribed, you can look for all these podcasts on any of your favorite podcast platform and follow us. Thank you for always joining us on this podcast. Rosemond, thank you. It's always a pleasure and a delight having you on the podcast. We hope to have you here soon. Very, very soon. Thanks for joining us. All right. That's it for today. Bye.
Bye.